Let's talk about constructive contexts. Every construction game in my library falls into one of two categories. Either I've played it for less than 30 hours, or I've played it for more than 1,000 hours. There's very few games, construction games, that I've played for, say, 100 hours. That's really strange when you think about it. Why is there such a dichotomy? I noticed the same dichotomy in my prototypes. There are some prototypes that fail out almost immediately. But there are some prototypes I go back to even today, and I'm like, if I had a few 100,000 free hours, I could make this into a game, and I think it would be good. Now, I understand that one person's opinion is hardly some kind of objective truth, but there is something very clear separating these games that I don't play for very long from the games that I play for way too long, and I thought it would be fun to look at that separation. What is it? It's how good the contexts are. You see, I love a game that lets me go to a new place to try a new thing in a new way. And not all games are built to allow that. Let me give you an example of a game that is. Dwarf Fortress, which for some reason is being represented by a castle. But before you can build your castle, you're going to have to choose a context. Are you on top of a mountain? Are you in a valley? Are you surrounded by forest? Are you surrounded by icy fjords? Are there goblins to all sides? Are there elves? What exactly is the context of your base? Now, the construction side of things has to be fertile enough to allow us to change how we manage our base to deal with these different contexts. There does have to be a good enough construction system so that it's a different base in each of these contexts. But the contexts are the part that get us coming back. We get inspired to try something new. Let's go try living on that death plane. Let's go try living on an island. Let's go try living in a desert. And that's just the beginning of our contexts, because we can also choose what we bring with us and who we bring with us. So we could have an all-vegetarian run. We could have 3 stranded survivors living on a desert island. We could have 20 armed marines trying to fight off the goblin hordes. We can create whatever sort of actual final mission that we want. This base isn't a base that is assigned to us. We choose which contexts we would like to layer on top of each other and create our own mission. We choose what we want to do today. This creates a never-ending pull where we want to go back into the game because we want to try something new in a new place, in a new way. And the game supports that. So let's talk about a game that doesn't do that. The most common way to fail to do that is to provide missions rather than contexts. An example of that would be most physics-based car games where it's just levels. Do each of these puzzles. The problem is if we're told to do a puzzle, we're going to do a puzzle. We're not going to try and stretch our wings and do something new in a new way in a new place. You've already told us to do this specific thing in this specific place, so that's what we'll do. Moreover, most of the time these puzzles are pretty carefully balanced, so you can't really bring your own constraints. You can't do a no-wood run because there's just no way to do it. These missions, this isn't necessarily bad. It's not that these games suck. It's just that they're short. Once I've finished, I'm done. There's no reason for me to go back and ever try anything ever else again. So it's over. I've gone through the content you provided. But contexts never run out of content. Here's Kerbal from Kerbal Space Program. The map of this game provides contexts that unfold very naturally. The game doesn't tell you what to do in sandbox mode, but it's pretty clear that you as a player want to do stuff. You're on a launch pad. Can you get off the launch pad? Yes, you can. Can you get into space? Can you get into orbit? Each of these things suggests itself as you're looking for something new to do. And then you see a moon over here and another moon over there, and you're like, oh, can we go to the moon? Can we come back from the moon? The moon is not a mission. It is a context. The moon is exactly as important in Hour 2 as Hour 2000. Sure, you've landed on the moon hundreds of times, but have you done it using only solid fuel rockets? Have you done it without any Kerbals? Have you done it with 100 Kerbals? Have you built a base on the moon? Have you hopped from one moon to the other? We can continue layering on additional challenge as we get more experienced and want to try more complicated details. There was a whole Reddit for this. Can you get to the moon using the fewest parts? Can you get to the moon without a ship? What can you do? This is why people kept coming back to Kerbal for so long. The contexts were so rich and easy to be inspired by, but you could build whatever mission you wanted within those contexts. So, as an example of a game that completely fails, Kerbal. Kerbal Space Program. We're on Kerbal, but this time we are playing in career mode. And we're sitting on the launch pad. And the game says, launch using this much money. Go to this height using this much money. Use this engine at this altitude. Get into orbit at this altitude and this incline. Go to this specific spot on the moon and then come back. They've turned their beautiful contextual map into a series of objectives. And even though these are optional objectives and are not strictly linear, it strips out all of the agency. I cannot play Kerbal in career mode because it's not fun to be told what to do. It feels like I'm playing those linear puzzle games, the linear vehicle puzzle games. And that's just not as much fun as having the entire universe open to you and just being able to do whatever seems cool. But that said, the universe has to exist. The universe has to suggest cool things to you. There has to be a context. A lot of spaceship construction games don't do that. They basically just start you off on a big plate in space surrounded by an endless asteroid field. And they say, go. Now, the hope of this kind of game is that you'll think that creating spaceships is so fun that you don't need them to do anything. They just exist. This can work, but only if the game is incredibly flexible so that I can bring all of my own contexts, like space engineers. What are the most popular space engineers ships? There's the Enterprise, the Millennium Falcon, anything that someone brings in from outside. The game itself has very few contexts. It's got a few more now that there are planets, but for the most part, anything that you build in this game is built as a reference to something that's not in the game, because the game itself has no structure. The universe does not exist in any meaningful sense. It's just a giant endless expanse of asteroids. The game cannot suggest contexts, so we cannot be inspired by that world. And this is hardly specific to space engineers. Dozens of spaceship games do this exact same thing. So that's where we're at. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about how do we make a game where the world is so rich that it inspires the player to want to build new kinds of things and new kinds of places. How can we focus on that while still allowing the construction to be expressive and fun? One little hint I've got is Skyrim. Now, Skyrim is a pretty bad RPG. If we were to compare Skyrim to, say, Like a Dragon is one of the best RPGs that's come out recently. The combat engine could use a little bit of work, but it's extremely good. However, if you play Like a Dragon, you're always going to have the same experience. There's going to be 15 hours of cutscenes, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of linear story sequences. You always play this game the same way, no matter how good the game is. But in Skyrim, the game is not very good, but the instant you edit out the opening, the tutorial sequence, you can just go anywhere. You can go into any of the game's contexts, any of the cities or wilderness areas, and you can be whoever you want to be. add in mods, and the potential is basically infinite. You can just go and do whatever you want. The world provides a set of contexts for you to explore. Mods do as well. And then you can add in additional layers. Today we're going to play a non-mage, someone that won't do any magic. Today we're going to be a sneak thief. Today we're going to be just a mage. Today we're going to be noble. Today we're going to be villainous. Today I'm going to try and kill everybody on the entire map. All of these specific challenges have a lot of the same characteristics of the challenges that make me come back to Kerbal, or Rimworld, or Dwarf Fortress, or even Space Engineers. So that's my big takeaway, and I'm looking forward to thinking about prototypes that are built around this concept, rather than around the best way to build something. Let me know what you think.